All right, so today I want to break down for you guys how to get your real estate license step by step in a process so that by the end of this video, you'll be on your way to making your first sale. To give you guys a little context, I got my real estate license here in Texas back earlier this year in January. And although I don't actually have it active right now, because I do focus most of my time on investment properties and my own real estate investing, I'll say that getting your real estate license and buying and selling real estate as a realtor is a great way to build up your equity position if you're looking to invest in real estate and you don't have the cash saved up yet to buy your first property. Especially if you don't already have another W-2 job like I do, I would say that being in real estate is definitely a great profession. It allows you to work on your own time. You have an unlimited sales cap, and it's a great thing you can do even without having a college degree. Now that being said, we're going to assume that you've made the decision that you want to be a realtor. You just need to know the steps on how to actually get your license. I'm going to try to make this video as succinct as possible and just lay out the steps for you guys so you can go and make your first sale. So step number one, you need to meet the minimum qualifications. Now the minimum qualifications are going to vary from state to state, but in general, the basic ground rules are that you need to be 18 years of age and have a US citizenship. Generally, most states will ask that you meet the requirements for trustworthiness, honesty, and integrity, but honestly, those are intangibles that you can answer yourself if you're that type of person. So once you've confirmed that you do meet the minimum qualifications to actually applying to get your real estate license, step number two is going to be actually filing your application. Now, generally for this, what you're going to want to do is Google your state's real estate salesperson licensing, and it'll take you to a state website that allows you to create an account and make an application so that they're now tracking that you're on your way to getting your real estate license. Once again, I'm going to use Texas as an example because that's where I got my license. You're going to go to TREC. You're going to go through the online services to actually open an application and apply through that portal. In addition, once you actually open your application packet, this is for any state, there's generally going to be an application fee. Just be aware that this could be anywhere from $100 to $300 depending on your state, and generally I think it falls within the $200 range. So this is an upfront cost that you do need to account for, but just know that if you make a single real estate sale, that will more than cover the cost of actually applying for your license. So now that you've gone through the online licensing service and that your application's actually open, you then have an application number that you're going to use throughout the rest of this process. So the third step is going to be getting your background check done. Now again, this varies from state to state, but generally, states are going to ask you for a background check, generally through the form of fingerprinting. In order to get your fingerprints taken and get your background check done, you're going to have to look up a place that you can actually get your fingerprints taken, especially here in Texas. That's a requirement that you need to do in order to get your license. Once again, just to use Texas as an example, if you go to Google Maps and you just look up fingerprinting, there'll be a few different locations, and what you can then do is call them and ask if you do fingerprinting for real estate licensing, and then that'll tell you whether or not that fingerprint station is going to allow you to get your fingerprints there to actually send them to TREC, which is the licensing organization here in Texas. I would say generally get this step knocked out pretty early because background checks can take some time. So once you filed your application and paid the fee, go ahead and just look up a good place to get your fingerprints done or just your background check if it's a different state and get that knocked out so they can process it while you're doing the rest of your education. Now the fourth step in getting your real estate license is going to be the longest, and that's definitely going to be the education process to actually get the qualifying hours done in order to meet the requirements for your specific state to get your license. Now traditionally it's called classroom hours of education required to actually get your real estate license, but I would highly recommend to use an online course that allows you to do it, especially if you have another full-time job. But let's say you don't, it's also just easier to do it at home on your own pace, at your own computer, and you can review as much as you want before each of the individual exams within the education before you actually get to the state and the national exam. I would say this is the step that gets a lot of people caught up because they expect the education to only take 15 days or a couple weeks to get done. You need to realize that if you're doing 200 classroom hours of education, even in an online course, there's usually not a way you can skip forward or else it wouldn't have been a state approved course. And so you need to budget your time accordingly so that you're prepared to spend at least 2 to 3 months to get all the education done. If anybody out there on YouTube or otherwise is telling you can get your real estate license in a week or a month, they're just not being upfront with you, and that's probably not a legal way to do it. And just as a reality check, being a realtor is a profession that requires you to follow the law very precisely or you're going to get yourself in a lot of trouble. So generally speaking, I'd say that budget about 2 to 3 months of your time just to be prepared to do all that education and spend the time reviewing and getting to know the state laws, the forms, the ins and outs of actually buying and selling real estate, and everything there is to know pretty much about everything from residential to commercial real estate and all the intricacies of all the forms for your specific state. To find an actual education provider to do this, your state's website is going to usually have a list, but my recommendation would actually be to just Google what good online courses there are for your state's licensing program, or if you have a friend or a colleague that's actually done the real estate licensing process already and they found that the education they used was super helpful, I would definitely go with that. The one that I use here in Texas is called Real Estate U, and it was a pretty good software that allowed me to do everything on my own time. Obviously, everything was timed so that you could actually meet the state required minimum hours, but it wasn't something where I couldn't go back or I couldn't skip forward if I actually understood the section. So it was generally a pretty good course. This isn't sponsored, but that's just the course that I used, and it was pretty good. For myself, I think I took about 2.5 months maybe, and this was during the holidays also, so I wasn't spending all of my time on the real estate education, and mind you, I also was working a full-time job. So basically studying at night and on the weekends took me about 2.5 months to get my licensing done in terms of the education process. So once you've actually finished your real estate education, which is all the minimum hours required by your state, we're then now on to step number 5, which is actually taking the real estate exam, which means from your specific state, as well as the national real estate exam, which is the same across all 50 states. So a couple notes around actually taking the exam. There's only a certain number of times you can fail the exam before you have to redo the entire education process. And if you fail a number of times, generally in most states, you have to actually redo certain parts of the education just in order to be able to retake the test. So I definitely would not go in there winging it, especially if you didn't learn anything from the 180 hours or 300 hours or however many hours your state requires. Make sure you have a sound understanding of real estate, especially in your state, and what it takes to pass the exam before you actually get in there. Now, I'll also say that generally most courses will have a really good state exam review for you to go through and some practice exams that you can take. They're not going to be exactly what's on the exam, but they're a pretty good way to get prepared without actually having to take the exam itself. I'll tell you guys right now that I failed the Texas state exam portion the first time, and I think it took me 2 or 3 tries actually to pass it. So on the 3rd try, I believe, I finally got the state exam portion to pass. The national exam, I would say, is a lot easier, and I would say that it's probably different in other states because the Texas real estate finance portion and the Texas law portion of the real estate education is pretty tough, and they ask some pretty specific questions. But other than that, it wasn't too bad. Nothing you can't pass from actually getting a grip for the material and understanding what the hell's going on. Now, after you've completed step number 5, you're technically now eligible to actually get your license. That being said, you're not actually a licensed realtor until you hang your license with a brokerage. So the 6th and last step in this process is going to be actually finding a sponsor to sponsor your real estate license. And what this means again is getting a brokerage that you can hang your license with. I would say that this is almost the most important step because the brokerage that you choose is going to set the foundation for whether or not you have the tools to succeed and whether or not you can actually sell. Now, finding a sponsor is going to be very subjective. It's going to depend on what you're looking for in a brokerage, the type of team you want to work with, whether you want to actually work on a team or if you want to be an individual agent within the brokerage, all kinds of things. And so these are decisions you could probably make later on once you've actually gotten your license, but I'd be careful with the route that you take because it's going to set you up for the type of success or failure you're going to have in the beginning of your real estate journey. I'd say that from personal experience, starting out as a real estate agent, doesn't matter if you're 20 or 30 or 40 or whatever age, starting out, it's likely going to be very beneficial to start out on a team. Your primary focus in the beginning of buying and selling real estate, just as it would be for any career, is not to make a ton of money right from the get-go. It's an unrealistic expectation to have that your first year you're going to go and crush it and sell 10 million, unless for some reason all the market conditions and all the factors that go into buying and selling real estate are just in your favor. Now, the decision between being an individual agent and working on a team is ultimately going to be up to you, but I'd say if you don't already have an extensive list of prospects for your real estate career, it definitely helps to join an ecosystem of a team that already has a lot of those leads. So that's pretty much all there is to it. 5 or 6 steps and you're on your way to getting your real estate license. Now, obviously it's much easier said than done, and it's going to be up to you guys out there to actually put in the time for the education process and not set your expectation too high with how much you're going to sell initially, as well as the total amount of time it's going to actually take to get your license in the first place. Now, if you guys have seen the rest of the videos on my channel about investing in real estate, you would know that my focus is primarily on real estate investing and less on the buying and selling side, which is why I ended up deciding to take my license inactive. A quick note for you guys out there that haven't seen the other video, I would say that in general, especially if you have another full-time job, having your real estate license in conjunction with trying to buy and sell real estate as a realtor and sourcing deals, closing deals, financing them, turning them around and getting them rented out is a completely different ballgame and something that's going to take up a lot of your time either way. And so personally, I'd say that it's better to focus on one as opposed to being just okay in both. Now, once again, if you're out there looking to get your real estate license for the first time and you've never worked another career and you're now focusing on real estate just in general as now your career path, I would say especially as a real estate agent, or a broker or any real estate professional, you're gonna be surrounded by other people that have real estate investments, and finding a mentor in the business that knows what they're talking about is a great way to get your feet wet and learn the fundamentals of not only how to sell real estate really well, but also to invest in real estate and build your wealth in the long run. At the end of the day, real estate is a profession and it's a career that you have to trade your time for money. And for the purposes of what I try to promote in this channel, what we want to do here is not have to trade as much of our time for money. So once again, there you have it. That's a general overview on how to get your real estate license. If you guys have any questions, drop them in the comment section below. I'd be more than happy to help as best as I can, especially as it pertains to getting your license here in Texas. As always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.